What's up, everybody? I want to apologize. I am a little late to the whole Midwest Gaming Classic thing, but I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. And I kind of wanted to do a mix of the October pickups, the Midwest Gaming Classic, and November pickups because it kind of all mashed in between, and I didn't have a lot of time to do each one individually. So this is what we're going to go with. This video I expect to be fairly lengthy, so sit back. Hopefully you have a drink with you or some popcorn or some sort of snack because we're going to run through this. So, Midwest Gaming Classic 2019, or technically 2021, being that they canceled 2020 and 2019. It's hard to believe that it was almost 2 years when I initially made the reservation for the hotel, which Matt, I, and my dear friend Ixie came all the way over from Maryland for, and spent the weekend in Milwaukee to attend the convention, and all that got pushed off, and it was just crazy stuff. The whole world just suddenly stopped, in a sense. But we made it, and it was a good time. Of course, we spent most of our time in the vendors area, where we went booth to booth, checking out what they had and hunting for little things. And Ixie came away with bags full of stuff. Matt found a few things, and he also ended up selling some games to some friends of his. And I unfortunately didn't find a whole lot. But then again, I didn't go in really hunting for anything, just mostly looking for import games for the Vita, as well as the Sega Saturn and some Dreamcast stuff, which I did find. And we'll see a couple of those things, but for the most part, I wanted to go just to kind of hang out, play some of the new games that Stern brought from Pinballs, and kind of seeing what was there. They did have an arcade auction, which I was super tempted to stay for in Sunday, but looking at the selection of games, it really wasn't something that I really wanted, along with the fact that Matt had pointed out we had no way of bringing it back home because all we had was my car, and the only way to transport it was to basically staple it to the top of my roof, and that wasn't going to happen. So, aside from that, I did get to the game room a little bit. Got to play the new Godzilla pinball game from Stern, which is really fun, surprisingly, and I'm not a big Godzilla fan, but it was a really fun table. I also stood in line for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pinball, which, sadly, that one I walked away a little disappointed. The table wasn't great to play, and there's some of the gimmicks and mechanics just didn't really strike me as something it was kind of cool. I mean, the effects and everything were neat, and it's always great to find some TMT stuff, but it just kind of left me wanting a little bit more. I'm not sure what it was, but yeah, I guess it was there. But I did get to play some other pins. The Addams Family and the Tales from the Crypt were great games. Always loved seeing those. I was super happy to see them there this year again. As well as some of the other little arcade games they had. They had some Neo Geos hanging around. House of the Dead 3 and 4 were there. Those were kind of fun to play. And of course, they had their museums. You could try out all the different games from the past to the present. And then they had a bunch of free PlayStations with some stuff like Paprium I saw was there. That was really cool. Paprium is a beat 'em up game that was made by Watermelon Games for the Sega Genesis and soon coming for other systems due to a Kickstarter that they've currently got going on. I got to play some shmup games or shooters, which are super fun, and got to try out some different arcade sticks that I haven't really played with before, and get a good feel for those. Because being an arcade stick collector and dabbler, I always love messing with some of that hardware. But aside from that, of course, we got to meet some of the cast from Mortal Kombat. The announcer for NBA Jam was there again this year, and I didn't realize he did Mutant League Football, which I did a review for Megavision some time ago. And as a kind of a thank you, he let me have this little sticker and made it out to me. So I thought that was really cool. Of course, the voice actor who did Invader Zim was there. We got to hang out with him for a little bit and chat. Really cool guy. I love some of the projects he's currently working on. It was really neat. And of course, what's a convention without meeting some of your favorite YouTubers? So we had a big, nice group that showed up. JLove81 and Linda were there. Tom and Lacey from Do Your Nerd, I got to meet them for the first time in person. There was Richard W., John Aguilera, Captain Algebra, who I actually have met in the past. We bartered with some games at one point. Of course, I invited out Tiger Chainsaw, who's kind of new to the gaming community here. Got to meet him. Him and I kind of talk on and off on Twitter quite a bit, as well as through his videos that he's been putting up. And check him out. He does some cool stuff like the top 10 likes and dislikes for a particular game he's played. I think he did one for God of War, which was really kind of interesting to kind of hear his take on that stuff, as well as some of his pickups that he's done recently. But we got to sit and chat. Of course, Chris Pico, old-ass retro gamer, was there. For the first time, I got to meet him as well. And there was a couple other people, unfortunately, I didn't get to see. I was hoping I would actually catch up with Vidya Gamer. Usually I run into him every year when I'm there, and I didn't see him this year. And I'm sure there's some other people that weren't there that I missed out on. So I apologize to those that I didn't see. Hopefully I will see you in a future convention. I was a little disappointed that Doc Mack from Galvin Ghost wasn't there this year. Usually they have a nice room that they rent out around there and have a bunch of their arcade games. But I did get to see them at the Pinball Expo just a week prior to that, so that's probably something. And Pat from Star World's Arcade in DeKalb, Illinois was also not there as well, and usually we try to catch up with them there. However, Matt and I did get to catch up. I'm stepping over my words again. With Gamester 81, who him and I have not seen since 2014 when he last visited the area to go to Midwest Gaming Classic. He hung out with Greg and us, and we did some Arcade Impossible filming, which was really fun, and got to hear about his new ventures that he was doing in the game that he's been working on for several years. And the poor guy was feeling a lot better than he has in the last few months due to some personal things he was going through. So it was great seeing him wandering around. I kept running into him from time to time. It was kind of fun. And then I also got some stickers here. So J-Love, of course, gave me her particular sticker. And then I also got one for the retro game community with that Super Nintendo controller on it. It really needs to be Sega Genesis, I feel. But that's just my personal opinion. And then Richard W. also gave me his sticker as well, which was kind of cool. So, and I felt bad because I don't have stickers of my own. In fact, I don't even have any merch of my own. I am not that big of a channel that I feel I need to have that stuff. Really, my icon even is, even though it's kind of special to me because Ixie was nice enough to draw that for me, but that's what I use. But so good times. Along with that, we got to go to the Safe House for food at a dinner. It was great. We all got to hang around in the area. Highly recommended if you get the chance and you're ever in Milwaukee, look up the Safe House. There will be a password to get into the place, but you don't need to know it. You'll get in eventually, but I'm not going to spoil it. But it was a very cool place to experience, and that's basically what it was. It's just one big spy-themed experience. It was super cool, and it was more exciting for me because I had actually lived just outside of Milwaukee for 4 years when I went to college, and I knew about the Safe House, and I knew the password, but I just have never been there. So that was a kind of a cool experience. The other place I would recommend if you're ever up there is Doc's Smokehouse. Really great place for brisket and pork tips and all that stuff. I mean, as a particular person, the best brisket I've probably had was Rudy's in Texas. And searching all over the Midwest, I have not found a place that has anything comparable. But Doc's Smokehouse just about hit it. It was great. Can't recommend that enough. There is also a location in Madison as well as Chicago, which I hope to get to at some point as well. It's just one of those things. I'm in the area and I don't think much about it. So anyway, moving on to pickups at the Midwest Gaming Classic. This wasn't so much, but it was given to me. Ixie found these really cool stickers, and she thought of me. So she got me Aerith from Final Fantasy VII, along with a cute little chibi version of Tifa. And then she found this really cool Tails sticker to go somewhere, which I have no idea where I'm going to put these just yet, but I'm sure I'll find a place. So that was really super nice of her. As far as games went, I found a game that I'd actually been eyeing online for some time, and that is 100 Swords, which is a strategy RPG game for the Dreamcast. This game was released for the PC here in the US, physical only. I did own a copy of that, but during my move to this new place, I seem to have lost those discs. So I'm sure if you hunt the internet, you'll probably find a copy. It's the only way to play it in English, as otherwise it was a Japanese Dreamcast exclusive game. And that's why I wanted to pick it up, is just to kind of re-experience that, even though there will be a bit of a learning curve as I try to figure out the menus and everything, as I expect them all to be in Japanese. So that'd be interesting. The other game I picked up was Final Fantasy for the PSP. And I don't really collect for the PSP all that much, but recently I got into kind of this Final Fantasy kick since they announced the remaster of these games for the iOS and Android devices. But from reading from reviews, the PSP version is kind of the definitive version of these games, and they're not available digitally. So the only way to get this is physically on the PSP. I already had the second game, so I was like, well, I kind of want to hunt for the first game. Actually, I think at one point I owned this first game, and I ended up selling it some time ago because I was like, well, I'm never going to get around to playing it. And the second game was a little more uncommon. And I was kind of right, as I have seen quite a few of these copies floating around, but it is complete inside with the manual and the UMD as well. So super hyped to be able to play that once I get around to it. The last thing I got was kind of a strange thing. I was eyeing it and talking with the guy, and you don't really come across all these much. It's nothing special, but is a red VMU for the Dreamcast, especially since the green and the blue ones I come across all the time, brand new in box, even for about $10. I can find those all day long, but I can't find the red, the onyx, and the yellow VMUs very much at all. So I was kind of like, oh, they have a red VMU. And the guy was asking quite a lot for it. And he's like, well, I see you're eyeing the VMU. Maybe we could work out something. And I said, yeah, it's a little steep for my liking. It will be used because I only have one other red one, and I tend to go through a lot of them because you can never have enough VMUs. And I load these suckers up all the time with different games, especially if I'm streaming them. I try to play ahead so that way I have saves for them and everything. So we talked, and I explained, yeah, I got a complete North American Dreamcast collection, and the one thing is finding these colored VMUs. You find the gray ones all day long and some of the other common colors, but red and the onyx ones are hard to come by. So after a little bit of talking, he finally came down actually half of the price that he was asking for this. And I said, okay, fine. You're giving me this deal. If I walk away now, I'd kind of feel dumb. So I agreed. And I got the little red VMU. So now I have a second one. Now, of course, it is missing the cap. But for most part, a lot of these VMUs these days, finding the cap itself is a chore. You're rarely going to find caps for these things if they're not with them already. But those are my pickups for the Midwest Gaming Classic. So we'll jump into October pickups. And the first things we have are game-related, but not games in particular. They are original soundtracks for 2 fighting games from Limited Run that I ordered probably 3 months ago, that finally arrived 3 or 4 months ago. But we have the King of Fighters 2000 with 32 tracks, and King of Fighters 2002, two of probably my top 5 King of Fighters games. And I really dig the soundtracks for those, and I didn't really have them, so I thought they were, fairly cheap. Might as well get them. So I jumped on it. Up next is a Kickstarter game from a few years back that finally arrived. This is Intrepid Izzy, a really fun action platforming game that I kickstarted some time ago. I was trying to get all these indie Dreamcast games, and I kind of slipped on a couple of them, and now they're some of them are super hard to find. But this one in particular was interesting just because I liked the design. It looked fun, which it is. I did end up streaming this game. I had a good time with it. There was a couple weird glitches with saving to the VMU and everything, but it was kind of strange. And unfortunately, I don't think they're going to patch it because you can't patch Dreamcast games anymore without reprinting all new versions. And when they announced they were shipping these out, mine unfortunately got lost in the mail somewhere. I'm not sure what happened to it. But it was like a month after that they had announced that all of them had went out, and I contacted them and said, hey, I still haven't received my copy. I'm not sure what happened. And they said, okay, well, we'll give it another week. They checked back with me, which was really nice. I didn't have to reach back out to them. They said, hey, have you received your copy yet? It's been a week since we spoke. And I said, no, unfortunately, it has not shown up. So they said, okay, we got you covered. We'll send you another copy. This time around, we'll include tracking so that way we make sure it gets to you. And sure enough, within 5 to 6 days, it arrived, which was kind of cool. But along with this, which I thought was interesting, so this has the Japanese design to it. So the backside has Japanese and English on it, as well as what you would have on a normal Japanese import game. One side has I don't know if it's going to show. It's not. It's got Japanese on one side and then English on the other. And again, that's not going to show very well. But what was cool is they included art. So inside here, I actually have a cover art with the English design on it. And then they included back art as well. So I have the back art for the English version with the black design, which will match the North American games, as well as the PAL version, which also has French on it. So if I wanted to, I could swap between those. However, I feel that most of my indie games are all kind of in the Japanese style, that I'll just keep it like that because it's easier for me to identify, because I don't have a lot of Japanese Dreamcast games per se. So I'm probably just going to leave it that way, and I'll just find a safe place for these back arts to hang around with. But moving on from that, this game in particular really caught my eye. I saw it on an online store that I usually browse, that I lurk for import games, and that is Pocket Fighter, a cute, chibi 2D fighting game that has a lot of cameos from Red Earth, Darkstalkers, and Street Fighter. This game was also available here in the US on PS1, as well as the Street Fighter Alpha Collection on the PS2. It was originally an arcade game and then released on the Saturn. And the Saturn is kind of the definitive version to play this on, so when I saw it come up on the site, I had to grab it. It was a pretty decent price for what I saw, because usually this game's in the $100 range, and it was far less than that. So I jumped on it. It is complete, has the backside art and everything, and the disc is in good shape. I haven't opened it yet because they resealed it with this plastic stuff to kind of protect it, and I hope one time to actually stream that as well. So something to look forward to. I'm not sure where I'll be streaming that, but maybe keep your eyes peeled. Next up, another weird Kickstarter game that I sort of... this in particular version is not the Kickstarter version. Another weird thing that happened, this was several years ago, back when the PlayStation Vita was just announced that they would no longer... or they would stop production here in the US as far as the carts went. And because of that, the Kickstarter announced, hey, we can't get the carts anymore. We can't do it, so we're canceling the Vita version. So I was like, well, that one's over. So I recalled my pledge and everything just before it ended. They gave back refunds and everything. And then they turned around and said, well, because we've had so many people ask about the Vita version, we will honor those who kept their pledges for the PlayStation Vita version, but we don't know when we'll get the cards to you. Several years later, PlayAsia announced that they will have this particular game, which is Skull Pirates. And it's only available physically. It's not the best game for the PlayStation Vita. I've seen reviews where they said it actually runs horrible, it's clunky, it feels unfinished, hasn't had a lot of refining to it, and it's not available digitally on the store. So it is kind of an interesting thing that even though they canceled, or they told people they were canceling the Kickstarter version, then went back and said, we'll honor it, but it may be a few years before you see the game. And then PlayAsia comes around and says, well, we've got our own version. It's cheaper than the Kickstarter version, includes the original soundtrack, manual, and is a limited number certificate. So all of that happened. So I was like, well, it was a game I was originally going to get anyway. I might as well get the PlayStation version, or PlayStation Vita version, and it's cheaper. And again, I think only 1,200 copies of this, or actually, no, it's less than that. I think 800 copies? It was something weird. It was like super low. There was another game, too, that was released alongside of it, which I skipped over. But yeah, just a crazy, crazy experience that's been. But, yeah. Anywho. Next thing here, NIS America, NIS America, had a restock on some of their games. This one in particular was the only one that really stood out to me. I was really super surprised that they restocked this game, because on the second-hand market, this is pretty expensive. And that is Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana. Now, I already have this game on the PlayStation Vita, and I was thinking some time ago, a couple months back, they had a big digital sale, and this game was on sale for $20. And this game's like somewhere in the $80 to $90 range for this game. And I was like, well, I'm not spending that for a physical version. So when they had the restock, it was only $40, I think. So it was like half of what it was on the secondhand market. So I jumped on it, even though I have the digital version. But now I have it physical. And the great thing is the PlayStation Vita version I have was the collector's edition that came with a steelbook case. But that steelbook case only holds a single CD. So I can say now I have a steelbook case for this game, as well as a physical copy, standard edition, on the PlayStation 4. And if you haven't played the Ys series, definitely jump into it. It's a great action RPG series, very fast-paced for the most part, great story, great visuals. Highly recommend this series to try out. Then the last game I got for October, which was kind of another interesting one. This is up for pre-order. This is Neptunia versus Senra Kagura Ninja Wars. And this is kind of a mismatch, or a mix match, of both series. So you have the Neptunia, which was an RPG game, and their 4 heroines, and then the hack and slash gameplay from Senra Kagura and their 4 heroines, and then you have one character who's made specifically for this game. It's non-canon, so it doesn't really fall in line with either series. It's a standalone story, which I did a review for this for Megavisions. It's on the website if you want to take a look at it, but I was kind of disappointed by this game. And I'm a huge Senra Kagura fan. I love the fast action, flashy ninja moves, and the girls, and their backstory and everything, and the slice of life stuff that they got going on. But I'm not a big fan of the Neptunia series. I have played the RPG series 1 through 3, the Rebirth games, and I just kind of fell off after that because it's part visual novel, part RPG, and it's clunky and it's not the best. It felt like it needed a lot of refinement, and it just never got there for me. Not to say that it's not a horrible game, it just wasn't something that I fell in love with all that much. But this game in particular, it was very grounded. You didn't have the flashy aerial attacks like you had in the past Senra Kagura games. Plus the fact that it was missing some of my favorite characters, I was a little let down. And there's no, as far as I know, there's no plans on including some of those extra characters from that series in this as DLC. So that was kind of a disappointment. That and the Senra Kagura series, who knows when we'll see it again. And I wanted to support that particular series as well. Because a lot of the policies that Sony has put in place now, which really hinders the series because of all the plot and fan service in this game. But if you like hack and slash games, hunt down the Senra Kagura series, or if you're able to find a copy of that, do pick it up. It gives you a little bit of taste from both series as well. You can kind of decide if you like one or the other, or both, maybe even. But give it a try. It is an interesting thing. But along with that, I also got the collector's edition, so it came in this nice little box. So we have the 4 heroines from the Neptunia series on one side, and the 4 heroines from Senra Kagura on the other side. In this particular collector's edition, all there is a special card that Iffy includes in some of their games, a soundtrack, and a art book. Along with that, it also came with this wall scroll, which I'm not going to open, but it's just got Neptunia herself in her ninja outfit, and a nice little decorative thing. It also came with some collector cards, and I'm not sure where those actually went. But if you ever order from Iffy's online store, every month they have a special collector card that you can get as an incentive for buying from their store, and those cards have become very sought after. And because this thing was delayed, I ended up getting September and October's card, so I got 3 of them. So September, October, and the special card for the limited pre-order for this particular game. So that's kind of cool. So now that brings us into November. For those, this was kind of an impulse buy. A guy on one of the Discords I hang around with mentioned this, and that is Miracle Girls Festival, released by Sega. This is a Japanese PlayStation Vita exclusive, so it was never released here in the West. But what interested me was the fact that the guy had mentioned it plays just like the Hatsune Miku rhythm games. And I really dig those. So I was like, okay, my interest is piqued. Now, he did mention that this in particular follows a bunch of idol animes, which I have no clue about. Like, I don't know any of these characters. I don't follow those animes, so I have no idea. But he said the theme songs are kind of catchy, and it's a fun game all around. So he said, I would recommend picking it up. So I found a copy online, and I grabbed it. And this is kind of an interesting one because it has an actual instruction card inside of them, which are very hard to come by in these PlayStation Vita games, as well as the card itself. So I got that for a pretty decent deal. So we'll see what that's like. But another import Vita game. Moving on to a different console, one that I don't know how or why this collection keeps growing. I rarely play my Switch, so I'm not sure why I ended up with all these different games. But first is a most common one that released in November, and that is Shin Megami Tensei 5, a first-person dungeon crawler. This game in particular, I'm not big on the first-person dungeon crawlers, but I do appreciate the Shin Megami Tensei series, so I wanted to support it, especially since it's by Atlas, and this particular one came with a steelbook, and for whatever reason, I've started collecting Atlas steelbooks. So keeping with that trend, I was like, okay, there's a steelbook, gotta get it. So I snagged it, and I don't have the crazy limited edition version, and I didn't want the standard version, just the steelbook. So I got it. It has this nice little slipcover, and I still haven't finished Shin Megami Tensei 3 yet, so yeah, take that as it will. Who knows, it'll probably go in the backlog for the next couple of years, and I'll get around to playing it eventually. This next game for the Switch is going to be quite controversial. And I say that because this game is probably the closest game you will get to an adult-only rated game. In fact, I'm not sure how it even managed to get by with a rated 18 rating from Peggy. This is an import game from the UK. So it's in English, it's a point-and-click adventure game, and it's called Perky Little Things. And take that as you will. But this includes a art book as well as the game. On the back side here, you can actually read. It includes the Nintendo Switch game with exclusive content and a fan service not safe for work art book. So the art book is completely uncensored, and the game has content in it because the digital version does not have it. In fact, the digital version I have heard is more censored than the physical version. Meaning that you will see things that you normally don't see in a video game, at least unless you go back to some of those on the Atari 2600. But the only thing that you will not see is the actual act that some people get into. That will be somewhat censored, but everything else is free game. So whatever that entails. But I saw a guy do a review on this, and he was like, it's an interesting thing for collectors, and if you enjoy plot and fan service, maybe something of interest. So I snagged a copy. You can actually find this on funboxmedia.com if you're interested. It is exclusive to their store. So you will not find this other than going onto the Nintendo Switch shop, and you will have a more censored version that way. So if that's something of interest to you, grab it. I was more curious about this just to see how bad of adult content is actually in this game, because it's a Nintendo system. And Nintendo in the past has been notorious saying we will not allow such things on our console. In fact, they censored Mortal Kombat, and we all know how that went. And their statements of, you will never find Night Trap on a Nintendo console. And come around to 2019, 2020, sure enough, Night Trap shows up on Nintendo Switch, a Nintendo console. So, yeah. Nintendo's really changing their tune on some things. And Sony's doing the opposite and saying, no, we don't want fan servicey stuff on our systems. So, but speaking of Sony's policy, I also ended up picking Smash the Battle. This is a hack and slash game with some light fan service, not quite to the amount as the last game, but I do love my hack and slash games. And this particular one also comes with the original soundtrack, printed manual, and a number certificate, as well as 2 games. So there was like a sequel to the game, and they included it all in one cart. This is number 963, and I think for the PlayStation 4 version, only 1,500 copies exist. It is also available on the Switch, but as far as I've been told, there is no difference between the Switch and the PS4 version. This is also available on Steam for some of you PC players. And that's all I have really much to say on that game. And then last one that we have is Blue Reflection Second Light. This is a sequel to a third-person RPG game by Gustin Koei-Tecmo, which I have not played Blue Reflection at all, but the thing that caught my eye was the fact that Blue Reflection, again, is another game and one of the most expensive games on the secondhand market for the PlayStation 4. So this is a very limited game, and my GameStop, this is the last copy they had. As far as I know, they have not gotten another copy in hand since. So an impulse buy, I was like, it's here. Something tells me I need to grab it. Otherwise, I'm never going to get the chance to play it, just like I haven't had the chance to play the first one. And some people I've talked to have said, it's average. You know, it's not horrible, but it's not like a great game, but it's worth your time to kind of look into. And I kind of felt that's how Knights of Azure, which was also done by Gust and Koei Tecmo as well, was. And those games are also very hard to find now these days. They aren't as expensive as Blue Reflection, but again, it was just something that, okay, if I really am interested in this game, I should probably grab it now, because if I wait 2 months, 3 months from now, I'm likely not going to find it again. So that was the reason why I picked that one up. And who knows, again, when I'll get to playing that one, because I have all these other ones before it to get to beforehand. But those are my game pickups for October, November, and the Midwest
Real quick,
Gaming
I'm going to
Classic.
interrupt this. Future me here. I forgot one game. So that wasn't really the last one, but this is the most important one and probably the biggest one that I ended up getting. And I had to share it because it was laying here on the other side of me on the floor, and it completely slipped my mind as I was re-recording this, because this is probably the third time that I've retaken this. But the last game that I actually got in November, and this actually just arrived, and I'm super excited for, because it's really not easy to get a hold of this. But as most people know, I'm a collector of arcade PCBs, or arcade boards themselves. Of course, I have the Atomiswave stuff, which is, you can kind of see them sitting up there in those fancy boxes. Right there, some of the Atomiswave games I own. And then I also collect for the Capcom Play System 2, or CPS 2. And I have a handful of those, but I finally got one in of another one that I've been long searching for. So let me lug this thing up here. And you can see I have X-Men versus Street Fighter. This was on my hit list for the CPS2 for a long time, so I'm super happy a guy on Discord, in an arcade Discord, I should say, that I'm part of, approached me when I had said that there's 3 games in the CPS2 collection that I'm actually hunting for, and one of them happened to be this game, and he reached out to me and said, hey, I actually have this game, and I'm willing to part with it. It is not Phoenixed. It still runs in the original battery. It's just the board. I actually have it already on a motherboard here from my Darkstalkers one. So I've actually tested this and played it, and it's super fun. Probably one of my favorite versus games aside from Marvel vs. Capcom. So this is the older one. So super happy to get that. But anyway, yeah, I will be putting an Infinity Key in this guy and getting rid of that stupid suicide battery and getting that cooked up. But other than that, I'll return you guys back to the video right now. The only other pickup that I really have was I finally received a copy of our newest issue of Megavisions with Cloud, or Final Fantasy, which is our big cover story in this. I'm super happy how this turned out. All of us at Megavisions worked super hard to get this together. I didn't really let people know I actually had copies with me, as well as our last 2 issues with me at Midwest Gaming Classic. I even had some posters I could have thrown in, but I didn't feel that group would have been interested in it. However, I will say, if you're watching this, J-Love, if any of you guys are interested in it, if you reach out to me, I do have these still for sale, and I will throw in a free poster of this cover that is a virgin, what they call a virgin cover, so it won't have the logo and everything. It is just this art from Sketchcraft, who has done a wonderful job. He's done most of our covers in the past and is our art director. But in this issue, of course, we do have a really awesome, just check out this art. So we have our big Final Fantasy VII review that covers the story of the original Final Fantasy as well as remake. Some really nice inner art that covers it, screenshots. And we also have a really cool interview with Corey Marshall, who is the voice of Ryo in the Shenmue games. Super cool to have that. We got to chat with him for a while. And then the rest of our reviews on some of our other stuff. I mean, we've got some really cool art. Streets of Rage, I should say, not Street Fighter. Oof. Some really cool inner art. So if you're feeling nostalgic, hit that up. We also have Mutant League games. Some of that you can see some of our interior art in there and everything. But
Yeah, this is available also from our web store. Of course, it will not include the poster that is separate, but we also, if you're just interested in the poster itself, that is also available as well. So, a little bit of a sales pitch there. Check that out. We also have the Patreon open, so issue 2 will be coming out in February. And I can't tell you what the cover is going to be for that because, honestly, I haven't been told yet. I have some idea, but I'm not 100% sure. And I'm afraid to ask the boss if I'm right or not because sometimes that gets me in trouble. But if you're interested in that and you want first dibs before it hits our web store a couple weeks beforehand, sign up for our Patreon because we also end up throwing in some extra goodies for our patrons who subscribe and get that issue earlier before anybody else. But as far as that goes, that's all I've got for now. I've run over now plenty of time. I'm almost at the half-hour mark, and I apologize. But that's it. As always, I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.